She opened my door without warning, slipped off her dress and said, "Move over, a 5-part true story, PHP1. It was almost midnight on a Thursday. I had just gotten into bed after spending the whole day fixing computer bugs at work. My apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet you get in a big building where everyone minds their own business. I was lying there, scrolling through my phone, watching some random video about planets and stars, when I heard my door handle turn. Now I live alone. I have lived in this apartment for about 6 months, and nobody has a key except me. So hearing that handle move made my heart jump into my throat. Before I could even get up, the door swung open. Standing there in my doorway was my neighbor from down the hall. I had seen her a few times in the elevator. Maybe said hello once or twice, but we were basically strangers. She was wearing a fancy black dress, the kind you wear to a special event. But her makeup was all smeared, running down her face in dark streaks. Her eyes were red and puffy. She had been crying, that much was obvious. She just stood there for a second, looking at me like she was trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of dream. Then, without saying a single word, she stepped inside and closed the door behind her. My brain was trying to catch up with what was happening. Was she in danger? Was someone chasing her? Should I call the police? But before I could ask any of these questions, she reached behind her back and unzipped her dress. In one smooth movement, she let it fall to the floor. I froze, completely froze. She was standing there in her underwear, tears streaming down her face, and she looked at me with the most broken expression I had ever seen on another human being. Then she said 4 words that I will never forget.
"Move over, please."
Her voice was barely a whisper, cracking with emotion. Let me tell you, my mind went through about 1,000 different thoughts in that moment. This was not what it looked like. I could tell right away, this was not some romantic situation or anything like that. This was desperation. This was someone at rock bottom, reaching out to the only person who happened to have their light on at midnight. I grabbed my blanket from the bed and immediately wrapped it around her shoulders. My hands were shaking a little bit because I had no idea what to do, but I knew I had to do something. "What happened?" I asked her. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" She collapsed onto the edge of my bed and started sobbing. Not gentle crying, but the kind of deep, painful sobs that come from somewhere way down inside. Through the tears, she managed to get a few words out.
"You left me, right before the wedding."
Tomorrow was supposed to be my wedding day. My stomach dropped. Oh no, this was bad. This was really, really bad. I sat down on the floor in front of her, trying to give her some space, but also wanting to make sure she knew I was there. I did not know what to say. What do you say to someone whose entire future just exploded? She kept crying, and I just sat there, feeling completely helpless. I am not good with emotional situations. I work with computers, not people. But something inside me knew that this woman needed someone, anyone, to just be present. So I stayed quiet and let her cry. After what felt like forever, but was probably only a few minutes, she looked up at me. "I am sorry," she said. "I should not have just barged in like this. I did not know where else to go." "Do not apologize," I told her. "You are safe here. Take all the time you need." She nodded and pulled the blanket tighter around herself. I got up slowly and went to my tiny kitchen to make some tea. My hands were still shaking as I filled the kettle with water. This night had gone from normal to completely insane in about 2 minutes flat. When I came back with 2 cups of tea, she had calmed down a little bit. She took the cup from me and held it like it was the only solid thing in her world. "Thank you," she whispered. I sat down on the floor again, leaning against the wall, giving her the bed. We did not talk much at first. Sometimes silence is better than trying to find the right words. But slowly, bit by bit, she started to tell me what had happened. Her fiancé had called off their wedding through a text message. Can you believe that? 5 years together, and he ended it with a text. Just a few hours earlier, while she was out with her friends celebrating her last night as a single woman. The message was short, simple, cruel. He said he could not go through with it. He was not ready. He was sorry. That was it. No phone call, no face-to-face conversation, just a text message that destroyed everything she had been planning for months. Her family had already flown in from all over the country. The venue was paid for. The flowers were ordered, the cake was made, and he just decided, hours before the ceremony, that he was done. As she talked, I could hear the pain in every word. She told me about how her best friend had to drive her home from the party, how she had walked into her apartment and seen the wedding dress hanging in the closet, how there were packed suitcases by the door for the honeymoon they were supposed to take, how everything in that apartment screamed future. And now there was no future, at least not the one she had imagined. I could not go back there, she said, her voice getting stronger. I could not be surrounded by all of that. So I started walking down the hallway, and I saw your light on under the door. I do not even know why I knocked. Or maybe I did not knock. Did I knock? I shook my head. You just came in, she laughed. But it was a sad laugh. That is even worse. I am sorry. I told her again not to apologize. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, even from a stranger. Part 2. We ended up talking for hours that night. At first, she told me everything about the relationship. How they met in college, how he proposed on a beach at sunset, how they had planned this whole life together, the house they were going to buy, the kids they were going to have, the places they were going to travel. It all sounded perfect, like something out of a movie. But then, as she kept talking, other details started coming out, little things that she had ignored or pushed aside. How he always seemed distant when they talked about the future. How he would get quiet whenever someone asked about the wedding. How he had been working late more and more often in the past few months. She said she thought it was just stress, normal wedding stress that everyone goes through. But looking back now, she could see all the warning signs she had missed. I was not sure what to say to most of this. I have never been engaged.
I have never even been in a serious long-term relationship. My life is pretty simple.
I work, I come home, I watch shows, I sleep. Repeat. But I tried to listen the way I would want someone to listen to me if I was falling apart. I asked questions when it seemed right. I stayed quiet when she needed to just talk. And slowly, I started to see that this was not just about the wedding being canceled. This was about her whole identity being shaken up. She had spent 5 years building a life with this person. She had made career choices based on their plans. She had moved to this city for his job. She had shaped her entire world around their future together. And now, with one text message, all of that was gone. She was not just losing a wedding. She was losing herself. Around 3 a.m, she asked me a question that caught me off guard.
Why did you let me in? You do not know me.
I could be anyone. You could have called security or told me to leave.
But you just wrapped me in a blanket and made tea. Why?
I had to think about that for a second. Honestly, I did not really know the answer.
Maybe because you looked like you needed help, I said. Maybe because I know what it feels like to be alone.
She looked at me with this expression I could not quite read. You seem like you have it together, she said. Computer job, nice apartment, your life seems pretty stable. I laughed at that. Stable, sure, but alone.
I work from home. I order everything online.
I barely talk to anyone except through email or video calls. I have lived in this building for 6 months, and I do not know a single person's name except the guy at the front desk. You are probably the longest conversation I have had in person in weeks. That is sad, she said, but not in a mean way.
Just honest. It is, I agreed. I guess I got comfortable being by myself. It is easier.
No drama, no complications, but also no connection, no real life, you know? She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. Maybe that is why I came here, she said. Because you are the only person in this whole building who does not know me, who does not have expectations, who does not see me as half of a couple. To you, I am just a person. Just me. I thought that was probably the smartest thing I had heard all night. Sometimes you need someone with no history, no context, no agenda. Someone who can just see you for who you are in this exact moment, without all the baggage. By 4 a.m, we had moved from talking about her ex to talking about life in general, our families,
Our jobs.
our fears, the weird dreams we had as kids that never worked out. She told me she used to want to be an artist. She studied graphic design in college and loved it, but somewhere along the way, she took a corporate job because it paid better, because her fiancé wanted stability, because everyone said you cannot make a living as an artist. Now she spends her days designing boring advertisements for products she does not care about. She had not painted anything for herself in 3 years. I told her about how I always wanted to build video games. That is why I learned to code. But then I got a job at a software company doing database work, and it pays really well, so I just stayed. I have a folder on my computer full of game ideas I have never touched. We are both living someone else's version of our lives, I said. She looked at me and actually smiled for the first time that night. Yeah, she said. I guess we are. Around 5 a.m, something shifted. She stopped crying. Her voice got steadier. She sat up straighter. It was like watching someone come back to life right in front of me. You know what? She said suddenly. I am glad he did this. I mean, it hurts like crazy right now. But if he was going to bail, better now than after the wedding, right? Better now than 5 years from now with kids involved. At least now I can start over completely. I agreed, though I was not sure if she really believed it or if she was just trying to convince herself. But sometimes you have to fake confidence until it becomes real. By the time the sun started coming up, she was exhausted. I could see it in her eyes. She needed sleep. I gave her the bed, grabbed a pillow, and settled on the couch. Before she fell asleep, she said one more thing. Thank you for being a stranger. It was the perfect thing to be tonight. I lay there on my couch as the morning light started filtering through the windows, thinking about how weird life is. Yesterday, I was just a lonely guy who worked from home and barely talked to anyone. Today, I had a heartbroken stranger sleeping in my bed, and somehow I felt more alive than I had in months. Sometimes the biggest moments in life show up when you least expect them, wearing a black dress and asking you to move over. Part 3. When she woke up, the sun was fully up and the apartment was bright. I had already been awake for an hour, making coffee and trying to figure out what you say to someone the morning after their life fell apart. She came out of the bedroom looking tired, but somehow different. Calmer, like she had cried out all the poison during the night and was left with something clearer. Good morning, I said, handing her a cup of coffee. She took it and sat down on the couch, wrapping herself in the blanket I had given her. Good morning, she replied. Then she looked at me. Today was supposed to be my wedding day. The words just hung there in the air between us. I nodded.
I know. Are you okay?
She shrugged. I do not know.
I called my best friend this morning. Everything is canceled.
The venue, the caterer, the photographer. My family knows. They all still in town, though. They flew in from everywhere. What about him? I asked carefully. She laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. He is gone. Completely gone. Moved all his stuff out while I was at the party last night. I went back to my apartment an hour ago to grab some clothes, and it is like he never existed. All his things, his furniture, his photos, everything, just gone. He did not even leave a real note. Just that text message. That is the most coward thing I have ever heard, I said, before I could stop myself. She looked at me, surprised, then nodded. Yeah, it really is. We sat there drinking coffee for a while, not talking, just being. Then I had this crazy idea. It came out of nowhere, and as soon as I thought it, I knew it was either brilliant or completely insane. I turned to her. The venue is already paid for, right? And the food and the music and everything? She nodded slowly. Yeah, all of it. Why? What if you still used it? I said. Not for a wedding, but for something else. A party. A celebration. Your family is already in town. Your friends are all here. Everyone already has today blocked off. What if instead of hiding and feeling ashamed, you threw the biggest life celebration party this city has ever seen? She stared at me like I had just suggested we fly to the moon. Are you serious right now? You want me to throw a party on what was supposed to be my wedding day? Think about it, I said, warming up to the idea. Everyone who came here did it because they love you, right? They did not come for him. They came to support you, so let them support you in a different way. Show them you are not broken. Show yourself you are not broken. Turn this whole thing around. Instead of a wedding, make it a fresh start party. A new beginning celebration. A middle finger to everyone who thinks you should hide in shame. She put down her coffee cup and just looked at me for a long time. I could see her mind working, turning the idea over, examining it from every angle. That is either the dumbest thing I have ever heard, she said slowly, or it is genius. I am not sure which. Maybe it is both, I said, but everything is already paid for. The venue, the flowers, the food, the music, it all goes to waste if you do not use it. And more importantly, you have all these people who care about you gathered in one place. Why not give them something to celebrate? What would I even say to people? She asked. How do I explain this? You tell them the truth, I said. You tell them your fiancé was a coward who could not face his own feelings. You tell them you are hurt, but not defeated. You tell them you are celebrating the fact that you found out now instead of later. You tell them you are choosing joy over shame. You tell them you are still standing. She was quiet for a long time. I could see tears forming in her eyes again, but these were different. Not tears of pain, tears of something else. Maybe hope. Maybe determination. Maybe just relief that there was another option besides crawling into a hole and disappearing. You know what? She said finally. Forget him. Forget the shame. Forget what people might think. Let's do it. Let's throw the most unconventional party anyone has ever seen. And just like that, we had a plan. We spent the next few hours on the phone, calling the venue to explain the situation, calling the DJ to change the playlist from romantic wedding songs to empowering celebration music, calling her friends to spread the word. At first, everyone thought she was having some kind of breakdown. Her mom actually asked if she needed to see a doctor, but once they understood what she was trying to do, they rallied. Her best friend was the first to truly get it. She called back 10 minutes later with ideas. We can make new programs. Instead of order of ceremony, we will do order of celebration. Instead of wedding vows, we will have people share toasts about resilience and strength. Instead of a first dance, you can dance with your dad to whatever song makes you happy. This is your day. Take it back. By noon, the plan was in motion. The bridesmaids were all on board, working on decorations and new signage. The venue was ready to pivot. Even the photographer agreed to come and capture what she called a historic moment. We ordered new programs printed on rush. The menu stayed the same, but we changed the place cards to be more casual and fun. Everything that screamed wedding was being transformed into something that screamed life goes on. The only question left was what she would wear. She absolutely refused to wear the wedding dress. That dress represented a promise that someone broke, and she was not going to honor that. Instead, she went out and bought a simple white sundress. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. Just something that made her feel like herself. When she came back with it, she looked lighter, like she had just dropped 1,000 pounds of expectations. As the afternoon went on and we got closer to party time, I could see her getting nervous. "What if people think I am crazy?" she asked at one point. "What if they judge me? What if this is a huge mistake?" I looked at her and said the only thing I could think of, if they judge you, then they do not understand what courage looks like.
You are taking the worst day of your life and turning it into something beautiful.
That is not crazy. That is heroic.
She smiled at me, really smiled, and said something I will never forget. "You know, I came to your apartment last night because I felt like I was dying, but talking to you, making this plan, choosing to celebrate instead of hide, this is the most alive I have felt in years. Maybe this is exactly what I needed, not the wedding. Choosing myself, choosing joy even when it hurts, that is when I knew she was going to be okay. More than okay. She was going to be amazing." Part 4 by 6 o'clock that evening, we were at the venue. It was beautiful, honestly. The flowers were stunning. The tables were perfectly set. The lighting was soft and romantic. If you did not know any better, you would think this was exactly what was planned all along. But the energy was different. Instead of nervous excitement, there was this buzz of curiosity and support. People did not know quite what to expect, but they showed up anyway. Guests started arriving, and you could see the confusion on their faces. Some of them had heard what happened. Some had not. The ones who did not know kept looking around for the groom, clearly thinking they were just early or that he was hiding somewhere getting ready. The ones who did know had this mix of pity and concern in their eyes, like they were worried she might break down at any moment. But she did not break down. She stood at the entrance in her simple white dress, and as each person arrived, she greeted them with honest words. "My fiancé called off the wedding, but you all came here to celebrate with me, and I am not letting his fear steal that from us. Welcome to my new beginning party." The reactions were incredible to watch. Some people started crying. Some hugged her immediately. Some just stood there shocked. But slowly everyone started to understand. Her grandmother was the first one to really get it. This tiny 80-year-old woman who had traveled from across the country. She walked right up, looked her granddaughter in the eye, and started clapping. Slowly at first, then louder. Then other people joined in. One by one, the whole entrance was filled with applause. Not because there was a wedding, but because there was courage. Because there was someone refusing to be defined by someone else's failure. I stayed in the background mostly. This was her moment, not mine. I was just the neighbor who happened to have his door open at the right time, but she kept pulling me forward. At one point, she grabbed my arm and brought me to meet her parents. "This is my friend," she said. "Last night, when I thought my world was ending, he reminded me that I get to choose how my story goes." Her mom hugged me so hard I thought my ribs might crack. "Thank you for being there for her," she whispered. The party itself was unlike anything I had ever seen. The DJ played upbeat music. People danced. Not slow, romantic dances, but fun, energetic, celebrating life kind of dances. Her friends took turns giving toasts, and instead of talking about love and marriage, they talked about strength and resilience. They told funny stories about her from college. They talked about all the times she had been there for them. They reminded everyone in that room why they loved her, completely separate from any relationship. Her dad gave a speech that had everyone in tears. He had prepared a father of the bride speech, but he threw it away and spoke from his heart instead. He talked about how proud he was that his daughter chose strength over shame, how she taught him something about courage that night, how sometimes life gives you a devastating blow, and the only thing you can do is stand back up and choose to keep living. He ended by saying, "This is not the party we planned, but it might be the most important party we ever have." At one point, she took the microphone herself. The room got quiet. You could feel everyone holding their breath, wondering what she would say. She stood there in her white sundress, looking stronger than she had any right to look after the night she had been through.
"I want to thank you all for being here," she started. "I know this is weird."
"I know this is not what any of us expected, but life is not always what we expect, is it?" She talked about how she had spent the last 5 years building a life around someone else, how she had made herself smaller to fit into someone else's vision, how she had ignored her own dreams because she thought being part of a couple was more important. And last night, when everything fell apart, I thought I had lost everything. But you know what I actually lost? I lost the weight of trying to be someone I am not. I lost the fear of disappointing someone who clearly did not value me. I lost the future I was forcing instead of the future I actually want. The room was completely silent. So today, she continued, is not about what I lost. It is about what I am choosing. I am choosing myself. I am choosing my dreams. I am choosing to surround myself with people who actually show up, like all of you did today. And I am choosing to believe that the best parts of my life are still ahead of me. She raised her glass to new beginnings, to showing up, to choosing joy even when it is hard. To all of you. Everyone raised their glasses and cheered. The energy in that room was electric. People were laughing and crying at the same time. Strangers were hugging. Her friends were dancing with her family members. The photographer was capturing everything with this huge smile on her face. Later, she told me she had shot hundreds of weddings, but this was the first time she had seen something truly meaningful happen at one of these events. As the night went on, I found myself actually having fun. I am not a party person. I usually hate these kinds of events, but there was something different about this. It was not forced. It was not about appearances. It was real. People were connecting on a real level, talking about real things, supporting someone who was brave enough to be vulnerable in front of everyone. By the end of the night, I had probably talked to more people than I had in the last year combined. Around midnight, as the party was winding down, she found me on the balcony overlooking the city. We just stood there for a minute, watching the lights, both of us exhausted, but in a good way. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything. For letting me fall apart in your apartment. For not judging me. For having this crazy idea. For being here tonight. I do not think I could have done this without you." I looked at her and smiled. "You could have. You are stronger than you think. But I am glad I got to be here for it." Part 5. The party finally ended around 1 a.m. As people left, so many of them told her it was the most meaningful event they had ever attended. Her grandmother hugged her for a long time and whispered something that made her cry, happy tears. Even people who had been skeptical at first admitted that what she did took more courage than most people ever show in their lives. We helped clean up a bit, though the venue staff insisted we leave it to them. Walking back to our apartment building that night felt surreal. Just 24 hours earlier, she had crashed into my life in the most dramatic way possible. Now here we were, walking side by side. Both of us, completely exhausted, but somehow energized at the same time. That was incredible, I said.
"You were incredible?" she laughed.
I still cannot believe I did that. Part of me thinks I am going to wake up tomorrow and regret the whole thing. "You will not regret it," I told her. "You took something painful and turned it into something beautiful. That is not something to regret. That is something to be proud of." When we got back to the building, We stood in the hallway between our apartments. "This is weird," she said. "Going back to normal after everything that just happened." I nodded. "Yeah, really weird." She looked at me with this expression I could not quite read. "So what now?"
Do we just go back to being neighbors who nod at each other in the elevator?
"I hope not," I said honestly. "I mean, you have seen me at my most awkward, making terrible tea at 3 a.m. And I have seen you at your most vulnerable. We are kind of past the polite stranger phase," she laughed, and it was the first really genuine, happy laugh I had heard from her. "Okay, so friends then?" "Friends," I agreed. "Good friends. The kind who answer the door at midnight and do not ask questions." Over the next few weeks, we did become real friends, not just neighbors, not just people who went through something intense together. Actual friends. We started having coffee in the mornings before I started work. She would tell me about her day, and I would tell her about whatever boring code problem I was trying to solve. We watched movies together, ordered takeout, complained about the building management, normal friend stuff. But there was also the deeper stuff. She started going to therapy, which she said was helping her process not just the breakup, but all the ways she had been living for someone else instead of herself. She started painting again. She set up a little studio corner in her apartment and would show me her work. It was good. Really good. Better than any corporate advertisement could ever be. She was finding herself again, piece by piece. I changed too. Having a real friend, someone I saw regularly and talked to about real things, pulled me out of my isolation bubble. I started going to a local coffee shop instead of ordering everything online. I joined a community sports league. I even started working on one of those video game ideas I had abandoned. Nothing serious, just a few hours a week. But it felt good to create something for myself again. She was the one who pushed me to do it. "Stop just existing," she said one day. "Start actually living." 3 months after that crazy night, we were sitting on my balcony watching another sunset. She had brought over some of her latest paintings to show me. They were full of color and movement, nothing like the dark, heavy stuff she had been creating right after the breakup. "These are amazing," I told her. "You should sell these." She shrugged. "Maybe someday. Right now, I am just creating for me. No pressure."
No expectations, just making things that make me happy.
She looked out at the city, and I could see her mind working. "You know what is funny?" she said after a while. "That night when I showed up at your door, I thought my life was over. I thought I had lost everything that mattered, but looking back now, that was actually the night my real life started. The life I was supposed to be living, all along. I just needed everything to fall apart so I could build it back the right way." I smiled.
Best intrusion of my life.
She laughed and pushed my shoulder playfully. "I still cannot believe I did that. Just walked into your apartment and dropped my dress on your floor." "What was I thinking?" "You were thinking you needed help," I said, "and you were brave enough to ask for it, even if you asked in the weirdest way possible. That takes guts. Not everyone can do that." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, just watching the sun go down. It was peaceful, easy, the kind of friendship that does not need constant talking because you are comfortable just being together. Eventually, she broke the silence. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course," I said. She took a deep breath. "I never thanked you properly, not just for that night, but for everything after, for being my friend, for pushing me to be myself, for reminding me that I am more than just someone's ex-fiancé."
You do not need to thank me, I said. You did the hard work. I just made tea and had one crazy idea.
She shook her head. "No, you gave me something I did not even know I needed. You gave me space to be a complete disaster without judgment. You saw me at my absolute worst and did not run away. You reminded me that kindness exists, even from strangers, especially from strangers. That matters more than you know. I did not know what to say to that, so I just said what I was feeling. You helped me too, you know. Before you crashed into my life, I was just going through the motions. Work, sleep, repeat. I was not really living. I was just existing. You reminded me that connection matters, that taking risks matters, that life is supposed to be more than just comfortable and safe. So thank you for that. As the last light faded from the sky, I thought about how strange life is, how one random moment can change everything, how sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us exactly where we need to be, how the people who matter most sometimes show up in the most unexpected ways. A few months ago, I was a lonely guy with a boring routine. Now I had a real friend, a better life, and a story I would never forget. So, what is next for you? I asked her. She thought about it for a moment. I do not know exactly. And you know what? I am okay with that. For the first time in my life, I am not planning 5 years ahead. I am just taking it one day at a time, making things I love, spending time with people who matter, and seeing where it goes. No pressure, no timeline, just living. That sounds perfect, I said. And it did. We sat there until the stars came out, talking about everything and nothing. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I realized that this was what life was supposed to be. Not perfect, not planned. Just real. Just two people who found each other in the middle of chaos and decided to build something better together. Not a romance, not a fairy tale. Just genuine friendship and mutual support. Just two people choosing to show up for each other. And honestly, that was better than any fairy tale could ever be. Later that night, after she went back to her apartment and I was getting ready for bed, I thought about that first moment, her standing in my doorway, tears streaming down her face, asking me to move over. It was terrifying and confusing, and completely unexpected. But it was also the beginning of something important. Sometimes the best relationships do not start with careful planning or perfect timing. Sometimes they start with someone opening your door without warning and reminding you that vulnerability, compassion, and human connection are worth more than any carefully organized life. And that is the thing about life. You cannot plan for the moments that matter most. You cannot schedule the people who will change you. You just have to be open to the chaos, ready to help when someone needs it, and brave enough to ask for help when you need it. That is what makes us human. That is what makes life worth living. Not the perfect moments, the messy ones, the unexpected ones, the ones that shake everything up and force you to rebuild. Those are the moments that matter.